Where to begin? Well, I'm doing this first of all on I'm doing this live, though I am not typically comfortable doing live anything or talks and on the internet especially, but part of why I'm doing it is for that very reason. Many times I find that I have things that I want to say or things that I'd like to share. And sometimes I make videos, and many times I make videos, and most of the time I don't share them, I don't post them. And I think a big reason for that is anxiety. And I'm sure I know a lot of people can relate to this. And this goes in line with the topic that I actually want to speak on today, which I think I put in the description as unlocking our healing ability or our healing power. And it is such a big topic. And I decided to also do this on YouTube, which I have not utilized this. I haven't utilized my channel. I haven't utilized YouTube in so long, actually, since COVID, I think, since the lockdowns, when I was putting some videos, I'm doing some live videos here on my channel. And some of those are still up there, but really I've very, very greatly underutilized this channel for so many years, and it's something that I also would like to begin doing more so anyways. So if I do if I make this to posting it after it goes live, or after this live as well, which I hope I do, I guess I should maybe give a little introduction as well. If I do share this as well on YouTube, I may share the link on my other platforms. So if you're watching this, whether from Facebook or my meetup, Sunset Beach Yoga community, hello, or maybe on Instagram, I know I have a following from all over the place and many platforms. If for some reason you stumbled across this video and you don't know me personally, my name is Jessica Ohm, and oh gosh, the next thing is usually like, what's my title, right? This is a really interesting subject because it's always been a difficult thing for me to follow up with. What do you do, Jessica? I've dubbed myself, or rather I've received the name Wandering Heartist, because for me it most fully encompasses what I feel that I offer, or that identifies the character of Jessica Ohm in this incarnation. What do I do? I believe that you could say I'm an artist, but I'm an artist of many things. For me, it's about following the inspiration of love, and I create from that inspiration. I share from that inspiration, and that love can appear as many things. Love appears as many things. It appears as everything, essentially. So that could be all kinds of things. But with that said, I would say that I've always been a movement enthusiast. Movement has been one of my most potent go-to medicines in this incarnation. And since I was a child, since I was a very young child, as well as music and writing and drawing, So movement, what's that? Of course, it's everything. We're moving in every moment. We're actually, even when we're still, the cells of our body is moving, right? Our blood is pumping. But even on a daily basis, just taking a step is a movement. So I am a passionate explorer and studier of conscious movement, I would say. So I have been teaching yoga since, I want to say 2008 or 2009 now. And so what is that, like 15 years? So a lot of people know me as a yoga teacher. A lot of people in my community, a lot of the circle of my friends know me as a yoga teacher. A lot of my followers here in social media realms know me as a yoga teacher. And yes, I do teach yoga. But what I want to speak on today is so far, it expands beyond yoga. And though yoga is a pathway, it is one beautiful, extremely powerful pathway. But it's not the only one. And I'm going to focus on some elements of yoga in this sharing, and also just movement in general, so we can get to the meaty part. So again, this is off the cuff. You might be wondering, what the heck, like, what's she getting at? What's the point? I didn't take any notes. I'm just flowing, and I felt inspired to share this because I myself just completed a very, very powerful self practice. And whenever I let myself go that deep, whenever I give myself to my practice so completely like this, I get all these you say downloads and different awarenesses and things that come through. It never fails, every single time. And it's so profound for me that I feel so compelled to share a little bit. And so many times this happens and I don't share anything, or I try and then I don't post it, or I'm so deep, like, in my own bliss that the idea of even taking the time later and writing stuff, I'm just like, no, I just want to enjoy this space. So today I just felt like, let me just throw myself out there. Let me just put this out there and do it. And part of the practice, again, is I don't want to say, maybe facing, overcoming whatever it's, meeting the sensations in my body, meeting the anxiety, meeting the thoughts that come through that judge, and allowing myself to still move through with ease. So with that said, let me get a little more in detail here. So I just had this really powerful practice. Like I said, this happens often, and I'm getting these downloads. One of the things that came through, that has come through many times for me, and of course we learn this knowledge now, we can read it in books, it's scientifically proven. There's like the book The Body Keeps the Score is a really good one. It's a very cited book along this subject. But our body expresses our emotions. It holds our emotions, it holds emotional patterns, but our body can express our mental and emotional state many times. And it often does this even in our posture. And as a body worker, this is a common thing that I assess in people. You can see it, but even just energetically, we can typically see somebody's emotional state or overall, like even traumas that people have acquired in their life based on their posture. So I know that with myself as well. And of course, all of my knowledge comes from most of my knowledge comes from my own personal exploration experience and reflection on these subjects. And oftentimes I will explore and discover certain things in my own practice and body, and then later on read about it and be like, that made sense. That makes sense. Like I figured that, I felt that connection on my own. And then of course there's science that backs it up. So I was in my own practice, and I'm going to be very vulnerable and transparent in sharing my experience so that this makes sense and stuff. But I'll just admit that I have not been doing my own, what I call practice, as I should be, as I have been. I don't want to should on myself, as I had been in the past. So I've fallen away from doing my own practices as much as I would like to. What happened today, for instance, when I got back into it, to the depth that I did, is as I was breathing down into my belly, I could feel tension in my throat, big tension in my throat and in my neck. And this has happened a couple times that I've really, really tuned in to myself, tuned into my body. And there's a difference between just, going through motions in a practice and what I refer to as really giving yourself to your practice. And when one gives themselves to their practice, there's no mind. And there's no distraction. I didn't even have music today. I went fully in with the breath and with all of my attention, not on anything else but the sensations in my own body. And biggest thing is the quality of the breath. So important is the quality of the breath. So as I was breathing down into my belly and stretching my diaphragm, first I noticed my diaphragm is very tight. And that makes sense because I've been going through some difficult emotions lately. Actually, I went through recently a bout of adrenal fatigue due to an overload of a really difficult emotional experience. And I knew that was happening, and I did not keep up with my own self-care in this way, doing my breath work, doing my movements, and I just kind of grit and did it, like gripped my jaws and got through it, and of course there's always an effect from that, right, when we don't actually fully process things. So here I was today, breathing, and as I was breathing, noticing my diaphragm is tight, and I'm literally trying to stretch it out with my inhale. Stretch out my diaphragm with the inhale. I feel this deep tension in my neck and in my throat. It was painful and it was coming down to my traps. Now, I have noticed, absolutely have noticed in the last couple years that my posture has changed. My shoulders have gone forward and up slightly, and the front of my neck has become increasingly tight. And a lot of people have this, and a lot of people would look at me like, your posture is not that bad. But for me, I have noticed that it is. It has changed noticeably for myself. And my breath, it's really that my breath has changed and my posture has been affected because of that. I haven't been breathing as deeply down into my diaphragm as I used to. And as that has locked down, then the breath, of course, comes into the chest. And as it comes up into the chest, we go into this guarding pattern of the shoulders coming up and forward. The front of the neck and throat gets tight, but this is also linked to my throat chakra. So anytime we don't feel like we're fully expressed or we're not being heard even, a lot of times that can also affect our throat. And that also makes sense for what I've experienced in the last couple of years. So again, what I'm getting at is that the body, again, is always going to reflect our emotional experience in our lives. There's no way that we can hide from the effects of life, right? From the effects of our emotions. So we have to we have to be responsible and keep clear of our experiences. And this is like taking a shower, brushing our teeth for our physical body. We also have our energetic body to do this for as well. And I say this all the time in my yoga classes, right? Why do we want to do that? Right? Why do we want to do that? Obviously, so we can live more freely. Freedom. Freedom is a word, it's not even a word, it's a concept, it's an energy that it's so beyond, like, it's not about money, it's not about anything else, it's literally about our mind. And it's our mind, it's being free in our body. I'd say it's mind, body, heart, spirit. It's feeling completely liberated in this life, and as fearless as possible. It's living with minimal fear. What's that like, right? I mean, that's the goal, is to live with minimal fear. And when it all comes down to it, everything is an experience of love, or the fear of not having, or being, or whatever, of the fear of not having love, right? So the opportunity is always to remember that it is abundant and always occurring. And technically we are that. So coming back to my subject, movement as medicine and unlocking our superpower, or our healing ability, which I believe is our superpower. So the connection between the gut and the throat, or the belly, the diaphragm, and the throat, that I found. I have actually read that the pelvis, especially in women, and the throat are connected. Well, I experienced this, and I've experienced it more than once. Again, when I'm breathing down into the diaphragm and it's super, super tight, I feel the tightness in my throat and neck, even coming up into the jaw, even into a little bit of the ear. And it's amazing the information that we can receive and learn from the body, from listening to the body. And I mean information, like learning things that people study, that you would have to go to books or to a class and learn, but the body will teach you if you are attuned to your breath and really giving yourself to the sensations and listening to the breath, listening to the body. I believe that we all have the ability to get those downloads, because it's not just, we're not just getting it from our body. Our body is created of the same consciousness that created everything in this universe. So essentially, you're just tuning into infinite intelligence, which is also existing in and as the body and in the cells of the body. So in yoga, we call this, we can call the energy prana, which is what it is, the universe energy. But I would say the teacher that's coming through is a creative energy called Shakti, which is a feminine force. But I don't have to go into these things with the yoga terms. I really just want to explain what the potential is here. Because the information is existing within the body and within the breath. And all we have to do is really, really tune in and listen and learn from whatever we hear. But it takes really, 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 really being honest with our practice. And I say this in my yoga classes too. I always say this. When we're getting into some uncomfortable places in the body, when we're really getting in, and that's what, for me, what practice is about. It's not just like, okay, going through some sun salutations, I'm going to stretch and strengthen and do some push-ups and get some abs and all this stuff. To me, that is not what I'm calling practice. What I'm calling practice is when we when we almost like dedicate ourselves to tuning in, to connecting to the breath, connecting to the sensations of the body, and then connecting to that, what I'm calling Shakti energy, and allowing it to move through our body, allowing it to move us. So we listen. I'll just say I listen when this happens, and I move accordingly. Now, my practice as a result is not what I post usually on the internet. It's not like a typical yoga practice. It is completely unique to the moment, and it can be anything from very weird positions to specific breath holds to specific mudras of my hands. It's kind of not describable, but it's completely customized to exactly what my body needs in that moment, at that time in my life, or on that day, to find balance, to come back to balance. Now, I learned today when I was in my practice that I'm very out of balance. So I'm not going to be able to find, the balance that my body really wants to come back into. I can feel that in one practice. There's no way. And that made me it also, I observed, made me really emotional. And it does every time when I recognize, like, wow, I've allowed myself to get really far out of balance. And I watch that, and I watch the judgment come up. And then I have to let that go too, and just be super present with exactly what's being called for in the moment. And that's what it's about. It's not about judging. It's not about rushing. It's not about getting discouraged because, oh my gosh, there's so much work to do. It's about being so fully present and continue to listen, because that was informative. That was informative for me to realize, okay, I'm feeling guilt. Okay, there's a lot of work to do. Okay, but we're doing the work. That's the point, is I'm doing the practice. I'm here and I'm doing the practice. So there was a lot of things that continued to arise. There was a lot of information that was coming up for me. A lot of floods of visions, memories, things that have occurred recently. They were coming up as I got into certain parts of my hips, certain pains that I was coming into. It was like, oh, that tension isn't a result of whatever, it's like there were sensations in my body today that I was like, wow, that's been there, and I haven't even given it attention. I didn't even, it's like I was just pushing through, because this is part of life, right? It's part of living. We just got to get through the day. We got to do this. We have so much to do. And gosh, all that started coming up where I was like, wow, these sensations and tensions in my body were a result of that pushing and not taking the time to actually do this work, this clearing work that I was talking about earlier. And it just reminded me of how absolutely important, again, it is. And coming back again, there are many, many ways to do this kind of work that I'm talking about, to do this practice that I'm talking about. Now, yoga is a beautiful way. It's a beautiful way to get introduced to tuning in and learning to listen on the level that I'm speaking of. There's also like Tai Chi and Qigong. So for me, what comes up for me a lot, and this is what I really wanted to share as well, is I feel personally that there's a secret connection, and it's not so secret. It's pretty obvious, but it's almost like a key to nature. Because I'm like, where did I learn how to do this? And yeah, I learned some yoga stuff. I've applied some things, but I've also learned many different types of movement in this lifetime that I was never taught from anybody. And people ask me, did you study this? Did you study that? Like the flow arts, the bow staff that I do, a lot of different things that I do. I didn't learn from anybody. I didn't watch videos. I taught myself, but really what I feel is that nature teaches us. It's inherent. We're right. We are indivisible from nature. First of all, we have the same cells as everything, as nature, and it's everywhere. And I've spent a lot of time in nature by myself, even as a child, but as an adult as well. It's like it's been my best friend, my greatest ally. And our breath is also, I feel, a connection to the to nature. And that in breath and out breath carries with it again that infinite knowledge and wisdom and all the teachings in the breath. And I really truly feel that if we, I guess you could say, master the breath, there comes with it just so much magic, and so much information, and we can unlock this power of tuning in and doing this type of practice. And it doesn't matter, again, if it's yoga, qigong, you don't even have to have a name for it. I would say that I encourage people to be able to turn on the breath, so turn on the intuition, which is, I would say tuning into the whole body as a satellite dish. But when we start to really breathe down into the belly and allow that breath to actually turn, almost like turn your satellite dish. So breathing fully and breathing out completely. So learning how to charge the body with the inhale and exhale. And there's many different breathing techniques that I could get into. The basic Ujjayi breath is a good one to start with. Obviously in yoga pranayama, we have many different kinds of breathing that I also teach, and I'm not going to get into here, but very, very powerful to learn some of those basic breaths, because once you attune to the different effects and energies of those pranayamas, then I think they naturally occur as you tune in and start to do the practice. And then you'll kind of just feel naturally, people can feel, I know I do personally, when certain pranayamas are being called for, when even certain breath holds are being called for in movement or even stillness. So, gosh, with that said, I feel like there's probably so much more that I wanted to share. There really is, but as I said, I did not prepare to do this live talk. I just threw myself into it so that I could get through the anxiety of it. On that note, by the way, the anxiety thing. So in 2020, probably, yeah, around COVID, again, the lockdowns, which is funny because that's the last time I was here, I started experiencing what I now realize, or learned later, anxiety attacks. Actually, I had a couple of them, and I'd never in my life, ever before then, experienced any kind of anxiety attack, or I wasn't really familiar with anxiety, although I probably have been living with it for most of my life. Now I realize I'm probably undiagnosed, have ADHD, undiagnosed, and definitely relate to all the literature and everything and people that I have come across around the subject, or people I know who have it. So can say that that's something that I've learned to navigate as well in the last handful of years, and also makes sense that why meditation, movement, yoga, all this stuff is very, very beneficial for me to keep this balance in my life. So if you're someone who has ADHD or anything like this, even ADD, it definitely helps to have some kind of meditation, movement practice, for sure. Helps to keep that balance. So with that said, though, I want to come back to anxiety. So anxiety wasn't something I understood before I did. And, I learned that it is a physical thing, because the anxiety actually is experienced in the body. We experience anxiety in so many different ways, but it's adrenal fatigue. So when our adrenaline is pumping too much, and our sympathetic nervous system is stuck in fight or flight, or is easily triggered into fight or flight, we start to experience that overload of adrenaline and different physical symptoms as a result. One of them is the diaphragm starts to lock down, so the stomach, the belly becomes tight, and our breath becomes short and shallow. As a result, we might feel tightness in the chest, tightness in the throat. Go figure. And the throat muscles become tight, the chest becomes tight. The heart rate increases as we're being pumped with cortisol and adrenaline. Then, of course, we're not getting good sleep. We start getting tired during the day. Our body is basically running, just barely running. And as a result, we also experience inflammation. So too much adrenaline, anxiety, all that stuff causes inflammation. And as we know now, inflammation is one of the leading causes for dis-ease in the body. So we want to keep an environment in the body, a low inflammatory environment. And we could do that through eating good, alkaline foods, taking supplements, yada yada, doing all the things. But if we are not dealing with our mind and emotions, then we're missing one of the biggest pieces, because that's where most of the anxiety is coming from. That's where the inflammation is going to come from, is the anxiety, and the anxiety is coming from the mind and unprocessed emotions, or stuck emotions. So how to deal with that? I want to go back though really quick. So one of the things that I learned about anxiety as well on a scientific level is when we are in anxiety, the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve in the body, and it runs from, I believe, the base of the top of the spinal cord, the base of where the brain meets the spinal cord there, and it comes down through the throat, go figure, down through the lungs, into the down through the diaphragm, down through the psoas, the muscle of the soul, and in the digestive system. And so that big nerve bundle, the vagus nerve, actually governs the autonomic nervous system. And when it's not healthy, that's when we get stuck in fight or flight, in sympathetic response. And when we're doing things that stimulate the vagus nerve, then it's healthy and it helps to govern that parasympathetic response, which is where we want to be most of the time, in rest or digest. So there's plenty of things that of course help with vagal tone. One of them is, of course, movement, again, somatic practice. So breath work, belly breathing, especially longer exhales and inhales, using our vocal cords, toning, singing, dancing, cold plunges, plenty of things you could get into and research and look into the vagus nerve, healing the vagus nerve, or just the vagus nerve in general. I also believe there's an audiobook I read called The Polyvagal Theory that has a lot of information on the vagus nerve. So I'll let you guys research that if you want to on your own. But why, of course, that the connection to that was with anxiety. So anxiety isn't an enemy, and everyone is prone to it. It's really just our body signaling that we need to do something to come back into a regulated state, into parasympathetic. So it's like alarm system, right? And I also want to say that it's not your fault. It's not our fault for having anxiety. Plenty of things can cause it. External events, certain traumas, accidents that might happen in current time, or traumas that have happened in your past being triggered that aren't processed through yet, all the way back to childhood. And that's where a lot of it actually comes from. And sometimes can go unnoticed until maybe something that is similar or might resemble that original trauma arises and then triggers into a very, intense state. So if you've ever felt anxiety or a reaction in your body that you've noticed feels a little over exaggerated or exaggerated for the event, you're like, wow, but you can't control it. That's usually a trauma from the past that's being triggered. So either way, this is our body's signal to, okay, there's something to be addressed, something to be taken care of. And this is where we have the ability to do so. So the tools are in our practice, or the medicine, the healing potential is in our practice. So our healing ability, and actually I should have addressed this at the beginning of the talk, is speaking on the word healing, because that's a loaded word as well. What does healing mean, right? So on a physical level, typically when someone needs healing, there's something that's broken or not functioning well, right? Whether you injured something or whatever, we say, oh, it needs to be healed, or we're sick, we have a cold or something, so we need to get better, right? But healing is a multi-level, multi-layered thing, and it goes along with health. So what is health? And there's multi-levels, multi-layers of health. So we have the physical body, but we in yoga acknowledge that there's more than the physical body. So we acknowledge other aspects of being, which is, or of the self, which of course we have the physical body, we have the energy body. A lot of people call that the aura, but it's also connected to our prana, which is our breath. Excuse me. And we have the mind, mental body. We have the intuition. We have, in yoga, we have the ananda, which is the bliss body, and the soul, the untouched essence of the one, of consciousness. And let's talk about mind, the mental, the emotional, and then the physical. So when we're talking about health, we have to recognize that, the physical body is a representation, or like a projection of our mental and emotional health. Although we can also look at it, and I do like to address that it is kind of an inside out, outside in, situation happening too, because our physical health can affect and does affect our emotional, mental health, and our mental and emotional health affects our physical health. So it's kind of simultaneously happening, but really to me it's so important, and it just comes down to focusing on mental and emotional, and then naturally our physical will also display health as well. So let me see if I can bring it back now, because I had like a train of thought here that was going on and then forgot it, or just like lost it for a second. We have the opportunity to check in with our health, with our state of health, and to be very honest, or not. Because you can look at the physical body from the outside and see, oh, that person might look healthy, right? I mean, there's so many people walking around that look really, really healthy, and then all of a sudden they're diagnosed with something out of the blue. Where did that come from? Now, I have no idea. I'm not going to say, oh, well, that came from, I'm not going to be the one to say where things come from, but I can say that most diseases start from something mental or emotional, unprocessed, coming through and expressing itself in the body. And there's a lot of science on this now, that people have the ability we, you, I, everyone has the ability to heal through the mind, through getting the mind on board. We can heal the body. There's been many accounts of miracles, things that go against the norm of science. Covers this if you're interested in watching that. It's good. So so other than just, let me back it up. We have this opportunity to do this now on a daily basis, of course, right? Because my goodness, if you're living in this world, if you're living in the world, right, with all the stimulation, with all of this stuff, unless you're living in the middle of the woods and totally off grid, which heck yeah for you. But if you're in the world, and also heck yeah for you if you're doing the hard work and you know, in the village, as they say, it doesn't matter what you're choosing in this life. Actually, I believe that we're all supposed to be, we're at exactly where we're supposed to be. We are existing exactly where we're supposed to be, doing our service and sharing our dharma. But if you're in, I'm in a city right now. Guys, I'm in Fort Lauderdale right now. It is insane for me. Lots of stimulation, too little nature for me. There's a lot going on. We're barraged. Our energy body is barraged. It's hard to stay grounded. It's even more important for me to be connected to my body, to nature, and to my breath. So I have to do this work. We don't have to, I don't want to say this. We have the opportunity to do it every day, but we shouldn't, I don't want to say shouldn't either. Don't want to should, but I will say it's less beneficial to judge ourselves for not doing a practice, or not doing our practice as much as we want to, instead of just doing it when we can, when we realize we need to do it, and going ahead and doing it and thanking ourselves for doing it. But of course, daily practice is always encouraged. But here I was at the beginning of this video, you know, totally being honest that I haven't been doing my practice to the extent and to the frequency in which I feel like I need. And now that I did today, for sure, get in that deep, really gave myself to it in full honesty. Now I recognize, okay, I got to get back. My body informed me of the imbalances that are existing. And when you are informed by your own body, this is the thing, we have the ability to listen and take responsibility for that information or not. But you cannot hide from the information. So that's the thing. When the body speaks, we have the ability to listen or not. But if we do not, it will come up again. The body is not going to forgive. It's going to come up a different way. It'll show up later, however it is. But trust me, if we don't listen, it will make us listen. And it won't be, usually it'll get louder and louder. And it can and does manifest into bigger issues that we will be humbled by. This is just the nature of the way things work. And why do that though, right? Like, why? When we have that ability to really check in with ourselves and feel the emotions, feel the feelings, do the work, move through, acknowledge the feelings. Sometimes they just need to be acknowledged. Sometimes the emotions that are in our body just need to be acknowledged. The imprints, the memories, whatever the thing that is occurring needs to be acknowledged. When there's an acknowledgement, a lot of times an awareness comes up that actually finds resolve or peace with the thing that's arising. This is what I find in my own experience and my own practice. There is almost a completion or a peace that occurs through an awareness that also comes with the acknowledging of that sensation and the emotion that is arising as I move through my freaking body. That's the thing. When we get through these tissues, when we work on things, and I'm telling you again, and I will repeat, when I say I move through the body, I'm not just doing asanas and moving through. I am literally listening to the tendons and ligaments and the fascia of this physical vehicle. It is such a weird creature science that that I find. Our body is just this crazy machine, biological machine, and the fascia. Y'all, I haven't even mentioned that. The fascia of our body, which isn't just the muscle, it's the lining that kind of covers the muscle. You've all seen it before. I know most of you probably know what fascia is by now. If not, you can research that as well. It's like how do I want to put this? I would say it's an information system it's an electrical system. It's like a big neural network of tissue that covers our entire body. And I do believe it's directly connected to the nervous system, but it also carries all the electrical and information. Like there's consciousness in our body, but the fascia for me, I feel really is where a lot of this secret stuff is, the secrets in general are stored. And when we're getting into the fascia of the body, and there's different ways to do it. There's also massage and stuff as well. But if you're stretching, if you're using your own body and doing specific work with the fascia, a lot of times the stretches and the different movements that get into the fascial network of the body aren't your typical stretches. So a lot of times they're, how to describe this? They're with bent limbs. So stretching with bent knees, it's more of a passive type of stretch. So it's hard to describe though. This is a kind of a, this is a tricky thing to describe. You can look into yin yoga. Yin yoga a lot of times involves a lot of getting into the fascia. A lot of the movements of yin are very passive, very long holds. It's again, even getting into the tendons and ligaments rather than just the muscle belly in the bodies. So I'm not going to get too much into the details of that, but I will just say that there is a massive power in getting into fascial release. Another thing for that, by the way, just another tip for that is foam rolling, or they even have, I think, these things called fascia blasters that have these like little plastic things, and you can kind of break up the tissues with this handheld thing. But foam rolling is definitely powerful. And yeah, yin yoga. Oof, I don't know if there's, I mean, yeah, I would say that yin yoga too is one of the most powerful practices as far as yoga practices go. Of course, I teach a lot of vinyasa and hatha, and I do that as well. But the yin has really transformed my life in a lot of different ways. And my type of practice, my type of yin yoga, when I'm really doing my own, as I've said, is not really anything that I've shared publicly, because I don't even know, I can't even describe it. I just like roll around on the ground with my eyes closed and just connected to my breath and go into an altered state and let the Shakti, let that energy that I'm tuning into with my breath guide my body into unwinding the area that I'm getting into, or the entire body, which just leads me to another thing, and then I'll wrap this up soon because it's getting long. The entire body, that just made me think of another thing that often comes through like a download when I'm doing especially yin yoga, is that our body is a mandala. Right, it's a you know, if you're not sure with familiar with the mandala, it's like it's it's not, I mean, yes, it's an energetic thing, but if you see it on like a painting, or even the monks do it, where it like starts as a point and then it's basically like a symmetrical geometric shape that goes outward, and our bodies are energetically like that as well. And Eastern medicine, acupuncture, even Eastern body work acknowledges the body in this way. It is the science behind even reflexology and stuff, where you can affect the entire body based on one part of the body. So we could treat a hand or a foot, and we're still affecting the whole system, right? Because it's all connected. We know this. So again, giving ourselves to the practice. I'm going to bring it back to that. When I give myself to my practice, the energy, my breath will guide my consciousness to do whatever is necessary to start finding balance. And I say start because, again, as I said at the beginning, this is a journey, and I can tell right now I'm not in balance right now, and there's going to be a lot of practice to come back into it. But we're on this journey of coming back into balance. So that consciousness will bring us back into balance following the energy. So sometimes it'll be like guiding me to do literally an hour of unwinding my right hip. I guess that's where the first place I need to go is. Sometimes it's, an hour of just working on doing different things on my neck, leading down to my right pectoral muscle. Like it's just endless. It's just wherever the energy needs to be released, or whatever needs to happen. And it's usually a mix of opening, which is stretching, and activating, which is strengthening. That happens. And it's, again, all guided by breath. It's all directly a felt somatic experience in the body too. There's information being shared. I listen, I do the things, and I'll tell you by the end of the practice, which, when is it done? It's done when it's done, usually. Oftentimes I'll give myself, I mean, literally, I don't put a time on it. I'm like, oh, I'm giving it however long it needs now. Might be the rest of the day if I want it to be. But sometimes, obviously, we run on time constriction, so you can give yourself whatever, an hour, 2 hours to the practice, which is, again, just whatever the breath is asking for. And I will go in and let it unravel, let it unfold, let it guide. And I'll tell you, not only have I got into, and this is not the goal, but it is a result, such altered states from this, that deeply altered states. I mean, like, you can't, basically, people do drugs, trip, take mushrooms, acid, and have similar experiences that I have had, and people I know have had, when we go into this when we really give ourselves to the practice that deeply. So that is an opportunity. It's not the goal. It is simply a result of going in. I mean, literally all kinds of chemicals in the brain are going to be released from going that deeply into exploring the inner realms of our body, going into giving yourself to consciousness and allowing the body to merge back with it. And I will go so deep. Once you get into that space, there's so much information that's going to be flooded into the consciousness, and a lot of it, it's being processed, but it's greater than what you can put into words, and I can't really explain that. Those of you who know what I'm talking about. It's like you're getting the download. There's no way you can put it into words. Same thing happens when people take ayahuasca. Again, I have taken psilocybin. I didn't actually do any kind of psychedelics until I was in my, I think, mid-20s or late 20s. And when I did, I was already deep into my practice, and I was like, this is literally the same. I remember I was sitting there in a ceremony and I was like, this is the same thing. And I think that's what I uttered. My words were like, this is the same. And I was like, I had already experienced this type of experience in going into these spaces with my own practice. So I find that is such a beautiful thing too, an opportunity to experience that kind of connection to, you know, different states of consciousness through going in. Another thing that happens is the electrical body, the nervous system gets completely activated, but also reset. So there's like, I'm shaking, like literally like buzzing with energy. I'm like electrified, but in the most sedated, calm space. Can't really explain that. But again, you probably know if you've done yin yoga. I'm not saying that's the only way to get into this space. I'm telling you, again, it's just about connecting with the breath, going in and listening to the Shakti, letting the energy guide whatever is needing to be done, and trusting that process, giving it, like, again, just focusing fully on the sensations of the body and what the body's asking for with connection to the breath. Don't judge anything, literally no judgment. I would recommend, if this is new to you or anything you want to explore, doing it in a space where you know nobody else is going to come in, so that you can be super fully present with yourself, and not, your attention isn't worried about someone walking in, it's not worried about what time, anything. You give yourself to the moment, to your practice, to your body, to your breath so completely. And I promise you, there is literally nothing more intimate in this life. There is literally nothing more intimate in this life than doing that. And to me, I can't say that there is anything more ecstatic than experiencing that kind of intimacy and connection between the body and the breath, and, you know, source, whatever that energy is that's guiding. And yeah. So I guess that's about what most of what I wanted to share, I guess, probably for now. It's probably a good amount of time. Yeah, it's just under an hour. Yeah, we'll see if I end up posting this. I hope so. Those of you here that are still listening, hi. Not sure if you've been here the whole time. I haven't really been looking, but all right. So how to end this? I guess thank you for listening to any part of this or all of this, if you did tune in. And if anyone that did listen to any part of this has any questions for me, please feel free to reach out, or just anyone want to share any of your guys' experiences, anything you can relate to. Yeah, please feel free to send me a message on any of these platforms that this ends up on, if it does. Otherwise, I hope to see you somewhere out there in the real life, not in the pixel life, but in the world. And yeah, those of you who don't know, again, well, I was going to say I'm South Florida based, mostly South Florida based, but I get around. I'm pretty nomadic, to be honest, hence the wandering artist. So maybe just reach out and see where I'm at any given point. I just moved, but I shouldn't even say moved. I was living in Maui for a while. Now I'm in Florida. I'm going to be up in Asheville probably for a week toward the end of June. Likely in Minnesota, end of July to August. And then we'll see. Most likely back to Florida after that, but not sure yet. Anyways, thank you again for tuning in. Please feel free to like, to share, to reach out, to yeah, whatever. But whatever you're doing, I hope this inspires you to breathe deeply and yeah, connect a little deeper with yourself, with your body, and with nature. Oh my gosh, with nature, I would have and should have probably spoke a little more on my connection to that. But friends, just go outside. Go hug a tree, go be barefoot on the grass, on the earth, by the ocean, by a river, by a lake, anything. Send some appreciation to our beautiful mother, send some appreciation down to our earth. Okay, love you. Namaste.